welcome everybody to Indaba, sort of for like November, December. Yeah. My name's Heather. I'm your usual host. We have a few very good people here to talk to. This is some of the enterprise desktop team, and they are here to tell you all about WSL and some of the really cool things that they've done. Like I said, I'm Heather. I got my impish injury shirt, if you guys can see it above my name. We have JB, who's the leader of the team. Yep. And we have Didier and Carlos. I mean, they're all rock stars that do like really cool work. And I can't say I've ever been excited to see Windows things, but I am really today because I think there's a huge market for it. And I know like a lot of friends that use WSL. So yeah, I think this is great. So welcome everyone. You know, we've got, you can put your questions into YouTube, Twitch, live stream, and we will try and answer them possibly throughout, maybe at the end, but we will get you some answers. So please ask us any questions about Ubuntu, WSL, enterprise stuff, and yeah, let's get this ball rolling. So JB, do you want to take it? Oh, let's do it this way.
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Jean-Baptiste. So nice to meet you all. It's my first Indaba, so I'm a bit nervous, but well. So I do a short presentation of WSL. So it's a bit weird working on Ubuntu and actually working on Windows, but you see how both ecosystem fit very well together. So if you're here, maybe you know what WSL is, but maybe you don't. So I will explain a little bit what it can do and what it is. So WSL allows you to run command line tools for Linux on Windows. So it's a WSL means a Windows Subsystem for Linux. And it lets developer run environment, including all the command line tools you know on Linux, utilities, and other application directly on Windows, unmodified. So without the overhead of running a traditional VM. So you don't have to start a virtual machine manager or anything like that. You don't have to dual boot. You run it directly on Windows. You can run several distributions, and among which Ubuntu. So for Ubuntu, you'll have various releases of Ubuntu. It's a real distribution. It's not something running in a container. It's a real distribution running in a lightweight VM with an upstream Linux kernel. So you have the real Linux environment and the real Ubuntu environment. So it starts fast once it's installed. It tears down quickly. You can drop it completely, restart it, well, do whatever you want. So it includes perfectly into your CI/CD workflow, for example. The target audience of WSL is mainly developer, data scientist, and well, the idea here is to meet the user where they are. So if you're working in enterprise and you're working on Windows, but your target deployment environment is Linux, then you can run your CI environment on Windows with Ubuntu running on WSL, and then deploy, for example, in the cloud on Azure or AWS or the cloud you like, and you have exactly the same environment than the one you're targeting. Although there is a tight integration between Windows and Linux and Ubuntu running on WSL. So it means that it's not an isolated VM. You have interoperability. You can run PowerShell command that ask run commands in WSL and get the output and then process it through WSL and PowerShell again, or do the opposite. From inside WSL, you can run Windows command or start a graphical application. So you can also start Windows graphical application from within WSL, but also Ubuntu graphical application inside WSL. So you can imagine all the crazy things you can do with WSL. And I'll hand it over to Didier to explain a bit how Ubuntu works with WSL.
Yeah, so as Jean-Baptiste was telling, the first time, like you are looking in the store and you are typing Ubuntu and see some results, it's really, mind blowing. you have, you have a full Linux distribution available, to your user click. And as we like to spread the love, there is not only one, but multiple Ubuntu applications in the store. So let me explain a little bit, what the difference between them are. But first, let's rewind a little bit. And I'm sure that this audience is quite familiar with the Ubuntu version scheme. But just, in case you are not aware of it, so Ubuntu is releasing twice a year, one in April, one in October. We are naming our version after the year and the month. So the current version from last October is 11.10. Then the 21.10, just 10 years late. And so the next release will be 22.04, then 22.10, 23.04, and so on. And every 2 years, we release an extended version, which we name an LTS, so for long-term support. So normal distribution, like all the other ones, are supported for 9 months. 9 months is not a very long time to get security updates, patches, and so on. And so we have every couple of years a long-term support release. This release is supported for 5 years and can be extended up to 10 years even. So it's very important in case of the enterprise. So in terms of WSL, we only officially release the LTS version. So right now, if you look for Ubuntu in the store, you will have Ubuntu 18.04, Ubuntu 20.04. Soon we will have Ubuntu 22.04 in the store. So it's already 3 applications. Then you will have a third one that we name, fourth one that we name Ubuntu. So Ubuntu will always track the latest LTS. So right now the Ubuntu application is 20.04, even 20.04.3, and it will automatically transition to 22.04 once this version is released. So we can either, stay on one version, say I want 18.04, and stay on 18.04 and have my Windows terminal executing 18.04 release. Or we can say, I always want the latest stable version for Ubuntu. And soon, it's just a question of weeks now, we are going to release a Ubuntu Preview. So Ubuntu Preview is an additional image which will always try the latest bit from Ubuntu. So, and not only LTSs. So when you install Ubuntu Preview, right now you will have the daily build of what is going to be 22.04. But once 22.04 is released, Ubuntu Preview will automatically transition. We have some automated system to build everything, to upload to the store, to validate that the tests are passing, and so on. And it will be 22.10. What will be 22.10? So you can always have some kind of a taste of what the next Ubuntu in WSL will be. Also, something which is important to notice is that when you install a package on WSL from Ubuntu, it's exactly the same archive than the traditional Ubuntu. So here I have Ubuntu desktop on my machine. Where I install, let's say, a VIM, it's exactly the same binary package from the same source that I install here on my Ubuntu machine or on Windows via WSL. So it's not something which is alien, which is totally, forked from Ubuntu. And when we do a fix here on the Ubuntu desktop or Ubuntu server, it's also the same fix that enters WSL. So it's really byte by byte, the same binary, the same source, the same servers that are used. So yeah, it's really part of the Ubuntu family as some kind of a flavor.
Yeah, Didier, it also means that for LTSs, we have security support. So when someone runs a long-running VM and doesn't want to trash it after doing his work, you'll have all the security features of Ubuntu. You don't have to reinstall it. You just install the updates, the security updates.
A quick question, because you're talking about packages. What about snaps? Do they run normally?
So WSL right now, we will go on what we are, what's next for WSL. WSL right now doesn't support systemd, so doesn't support Snap, but this is something we are working on. But yeah, so I guess enough talking. I guess it's more interesting for people to see it in real and see some, Windows. but we didn't work for a long time before working on WSL, and Carlos has a very cool demo for us.
Yes, please, Carlos.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let me just share my screen.
And just brief aside, Carlos was an amazing community member that we hired to continue his work and to pay him for it. And I'm so glad you're here, Carlos.
Thank you. It's really funny being hired to Canonical to work on Windows. I hope you see my screen now.
Oh, there we go. We should see it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I couldn't prepare a specific computer, just have this one. It's pretty fresh and up to date with the latest and greatest of Windows. So you're gonna see the easiest way possible to install WSL on Windows.
So this is Windows 11, is that?
11, yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you have the latest build of Windows 10, or if you have Windows 11, it's just a matter of doing WSL-install, and you're gonna get the infrastructure you need to run a distro. I have that already done, so it would not be very funny to watch. After doing that, you can just go to the Microsoft Store if you want, and search for your favorite distro. And as Didier explained, we have Ubuntu pointing to the 2004. I have that already installed, so it would not be funny to watch that. So let's install the older version.
Where was Ubuntu Preview?
Preview is not here yet.
Oh, okay.
It's coming in the coming, coming weeks, so very, very soon. And what Carlos is going to showcase basically will be by default in the Ubuntu Preview image.
It's our Christmas gift, so you have to wait a little bit. Be patient.
So I'm sure anybody has ever installed the Linux in the easiest way other than that. It's a little bit awkward. It's downloading the image. We need to wait a little bit.
But you just clicked a couple of buttons. That's pretty cool. How come you chose to go for 1804 instead of 2004 in this?
Because 2004 is already installed on my machine, so it wouldn't be funny to see that.
Okay.
So if I hit open, sorry, my computer is in Portuguese. I hope you're fluent on that.
We're an international community.
All right, so installation. Right now what you see is the old experience. It's pretty standard to the reference project that Microsoft shares on how to launch any WSL instance. Later we're going to talk about the new experience we're working on. So let's say I'm creating a new user for this specific instance I'm installing. And here we are. Ubuntu is installed and I'm already logged in my prompt. It's a regular Ubuntu distro as Didier explained. So if I go here and do sudo apt update, if my internet connection works, it should get the packages updated, what we have for this specific release. And everything's fine.
Is there any sort of like auto updater?
If you install all the packages that we run on desktop, for instance, or server, you can get whatever we have in Ubuntu. As Didier explained, it's not anything, any fork or any special Ubuntu image. Is what we have as a complete distro as we use it to. So I'm logged in. You can see that I'm running a Linux kernel 5.10. It's an actual kernel. It's not any translation, any hacky, any wind backward stuff. No, it's a Linux kernel. We just noticed that it's somewhat patched by Microsoft because it carries some specific tweaks for the Hyper-V, which is the virtualization platform that Windows gives to us. And it points to WSL2. It's a detail on WSL version, which I don't think we're going to talk a lot about it here. And as JB explained earlier, it's more useful to people that work on Windows but has this interaction with Linux because it likes or because it has to. People that work with web servers, for instance, deal a lot with this kind of stuff. And it's really interesting the way that both platforms interact together. Let's say, for instance, I have a very complicated script that outputs some stuff in text, and I want to quick share to somebody that I'm chatting to on Windows on a work. Let's say something like this: apt list. I want to see what I have installed on this computer related to Lang. I don't have anything. Let me see. Give me a package name that you think we should have here.
Well, see.
Let's see. Not even VI. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to see grep VI.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So let's say I'm chatting to somebody and I have this this need for knowing which packages related to VI I have here, but I'm really lazy to just come here and copy all that stuff by hand. So I could just do aptlist grep VI clip.exe. That's a Windows clipboard. So if let's say that Notepad is my chat application.
Huh.
So we have this kind of integration where the Windows environment path variable is shared to Linux and vice versa. So I could have I could launch from PowerShell. Let's see if I can open it here.
So what we see here is called interoperability. So it means that you can communicate completely transparently between Windows and Ubuntu and vice versa, from Ubuntu to Windows.
I don't remember if I have VI installed on Windows. I don't think so. Let's see what happens. No.
Is there any fancy networking stuff that you had to do to, route the traffic through Windows?
It comes from the platform itself. I mean, when Microsoft puts together the environment, the WSL, it takes care of the networking, and that's this variable mounting, that kind of stuff.
How does file sharing work between Windows and WSL?
It's really surprising. I'm sorry, I forgot that. I'm launching Explorer to see what I have here in my home folder in Linux. So it is accessible. Any distro that you have is gonna show in Explorer.exe as a file sharing through network. They talk to each other using the Plan 9p protocol, so we can inspect basically any folder from this distro.
Can you see hidden files?
Yes, pretty much. When you go to the Explorer.exe, you have the Windows experience. So these dot files you see here, you shouldn't see if you were in Nautilus, for instance. But here you see because Windows does not interpret that as a hidden file.
So what is funny here is that we are launching a Windows application like Explorer.exe. We are launching that, from Ubuntu, which is running on Microsoft. And what we are showing from this Windows application is the files that are on Linux. So basically, there is a lot of, inception.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
It's amazing.
So with Ubuntu installed on the system, if you were to go and open Explorer from the traditional Windows path, like kind of, I don't know, start menu or whatever, would you still be able to introspect the Linux file system?
Yes.
Awesome. Wow, that's so cool. Just everybody that's watching, this is my first time seeing WSL, and I'm pretty impressed.
You see here in the bottom of this left side panel, you have Linux. So there you see all your distros that are installed, and you can navigate it through those folders as you wish. It's a really interesting integration that both platforms have when running WSL2.
And so we can edit as well from Ubuntu Windows files. Maybe show that, Carlos, just so that you create a file, from this side, so that we can see the interoperability is, both ways, basically.
So
No,
let's say
one on
here-
/mnt/c, for instance, just
Okay.
creating files, on the Windows side. I mean, from
Let's save
Ubuntu.
let's save this to, let me see where. I put on users, documents, downloads. Packages.txt. So when you launch the WSL, it mounts the Windows drives. Maybe hard to see, but here is a C drive, here's a D drive. So I can navigate through /MT/C, users, even auto completion. You notice? Kernel. What we have here, I'm looking for downloads. I remember the name of the file. I think it was packages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can launch VI. Here we are. And I'm gonna just wipe this completely out. I cheated. I should have kept Notepad open, but just in case. So if I go there to my downloads folder, downloads, if you try to see package, it's clean. So it works both ways. If I edit the file here and save it, if I come here again, there it is.
That's great. What about like mounting a USB file system? I guess there's no difference, right? It's just like another mount point. Yeah.
Another mount point, another drive in the Windows side. So not very complicated.
Can we open like an iconic Ubuntu application, like why am I drawing like GNOME calculator or something? Can we open like a GNOME app within this?
I'm cheating.
Firefox,
To do that, first of all, I need to install a couple of packages because the image that we share on WSL doesn't come with everything that a desktop has. So it takes a while to install that. So that's why I preserved this instance with desktop minimum already installed. So if I launch Firefox, we rely on another component of the system, which is called WSLG. It stands for graphics. It provides us with a display environment variable, so we can launch any graphical application. It will be able to navigate. And if you notice it's not the Windows look and feel. So you will be sure that you're running a Linux application, even though it's a graphical one, and it has somewhat the Linux look and feel. And also, I'm not sure if you can see down the bottom, in the Firefox icon, we have also a penguin.
Oh yeah, tiny little penguin. That's great.
Yeah, that helps us to distinguish who for sure we are in the right place.
So is that penguin present on any like GUI application that's launched?
Any GUI application.
So you said that you have to do some additional steps to like be able to launch the GUI applications. Is that maybe there's some documentation out there that users could follow along if they wanted to do that in their spare time?
Sure, it's not very complicated. I mean, you should be able to see my screen. So you have a standard documentation from Microsoft that explains that. If you're running the latest Windows 11, you take that for granted. It's just a matter of installing the proper packages on the distro. In our case, you would install graphic drivers, you would install Firefox. I did the whole desktop at once to easy my job. But then it comes a really interesting feature that it's GPU acceleration. If you want that, I mean, if you run Blender, if you run intensive machine learning workloads, that kind of stuff, it would be nice to have your GPU shared between Windows and Linux. So you need special drivers on the Windows side and also on the Linux side as well. And you can do it. I'll demo that in a little bit. We run on OpenGL application. I'm not into machine learning, so I don't have that kind of stuff to share. But we'll get there. We have standard documentation on Microsoft side, and also in my case, I'm running a laptop with NVIDIA drivers. So we go through NVIDIA, but it's a very similar process for Intel or AMD, even CUDA. So you can be sure that we're gonna get a very interesting experience when it comes to 3D acceleration or compute on GPU. Before going that, I think I have another thing to show you, which is...
Hey, real quick, what about printing? Is cups still, like there's no issues printing across WSL Windows?
That's a good question. I never tried printing anything out of it. It should work out of the box, but I cannot take that for granted with my wall because I didn't do that.
Well, we need the system D basically, I guess, for this.
Again with the
because we need the cup service, for us, and so it's something that isn't enabled yet.
Okay.
Yeah, anything daemon related or long running services is a limitation. Because, well, without systemd, you cannot start services, you cannot watch if there is something in a queue, for example. So it's rather limiting. But that's why this is a plan for next release to release systemd and enable all these kind of services. And then once you have that, you will have cups running, and then you can have auto discovery and other feature of cups. And well, for printing, for example, it will work.
Very cool. What kind of testing is there? Like a test suite? I'm sure there's a test suite. So, like, what kind of testing is done on WSL with these images?
So
testing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Who want to go? Didier, I do.
Yeah, well, I can. So, well, this is also. Okay, so this is also something that we are expanding, this cycle. We have the build system, which is automated and so on. But instead of, doing some manual testing, as we do for normal images, we want as well, to have a huge suite of integrated testing as we have in all our projects. And it's something that we are going to deliver for this, new version, and it will impact all Ubuntu version on WSL. So basically, before releasing an image to the store, we'll have, the insurance that everything's working, which is complex because you are on a Windows machine. You need to install, some specific packages, ensuring that it's working on Windows 10, Windows 11, and you have a big matrix, of opportunities for breakage, let's say. So we want to ensure that we have something very solid and very strong before releasing these images. And so this is why it's taking a little bit of time to have all automated. But we don't release anyway an image, without testing it before.
Yeah, it's also the image are also produced from the same pipeline than cloud images, so they go through the same QA process than all our cloud images. So,
yeah, I meant more specifically like the integration with Windows.
Yeah, that's what we are adding right now.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then maybe towards the end, we'll post like where folks could file bugs if they're testing and find some issues. So Carlos, so we're cloning the example app.
Yeah, not very special, but I just wanted to show you a bit more about this integration thing. But it's nice that you're talking because working with Node sometimes take a while. So cloning sample web app application, and just for demonstration, I just did an npm install for that. Of course, you need to install Node.js on your Linux side first, And if I come here and do npm start, notice that I copied this comment from somewhere in my Windows file system, and I just hit Ctrl Shift V, and it's to paste on the terminal. It pastes a command and it runs, so it's really integrated. I'm sure
Wait.
from the first.
Why was there a pop-up to like ask if you really wanted to paste it?
That's Windows terminal stuff. It doesn't like when you paste stuff on a terminal. It wants to be sure that you did it for sure. So let me see if that's gonna work as I expect. I should be able to come here and say HTTP localhost 3000, and my demo app should open. Notice that I'm on Linux. I'm sorry, on Windows. I'm saying localhost and opening a port that is actually open on Linux side. It's completely transparent. So people that work with web apps like this very much. And I can open a new window on the same distro, and I can open my Firefox. And this time I'm sure I will not run any Windows binary, and I can be sure by the look and feel and also by the penguin. If I come here and say localhost 3000, you should have the very same experience. So this helps people to inspect the look and feel of their apps, especially the web apps, in both platforms without need to interacting with VirtualBox, VMware, this complicated virtual machine setup.
That's so cool.
We can
So
go also.
this is localhost, but it also means that you can add forwarding rules on Windows. So when you talk to specific ports on the machine Windows from the outside, you talk to the WSL instance actually. So you can run services inside WSL running on Windows and access them from the outside.
That's true.
So it's very, very, very flexible.
And you can also think about, Flutter developer who, develop an application, can test, on Linux, then on their emulator and so on, all from the same machine on Windows. Also, they can, you have a lot of scenarios like language that cross-compiles, and so you can try directly on Windows and on Linux without having to reboot or to have a VM, as Carlos was telling, where you need, to copy the file and to ensure that, everything is synced remotely, everything is transparent, it can be run from the same directory. You don't even have to, to care about having to recopy, remotely your local dev environment.
What about the situation where, and I don't know how common this would actually be with WSL, but like if someone, they have a tarball that they want to build and run locally, like they shouldn't have any more outstanding issues than they would on just like a native Ubuntu system.
Yeah, it's really a native Ubuntu system.
Yeah.
It's just tightly integrated with the guest OS, with the host OS.
And so you can still access like LSPCI and like all of those things that, regarding the hardware too, right?
Yeah. You can run LSPCI and you get the hardware. So, well, if you run it there, you should see.
What if someone wanted to build like, I don't know, the latest greatest Linux kernel upstream? Is there any sort of like tweaking of the kernel they could do? Maybe that's too integrated.
No, you can run your own kernel. Thing is, the kernel is shared across all the distributions you install. So if you have Ubuntu and other distribution, then the change of kernel will affect all the distribution. Maybe that's not what you want. That's why we use the common and standard Microsoft kernel. But if you want to test something, you can just download your own Ubuntu kernel. The Microsoft kernel is available from GitHub, for example. So you can download the source of the kernel, customize it as you like, and run it. So
very cool. And I'd like to remind people that they can post questions in the YouTube and Twitch chat if you have questions that I'm not asking for these wonderful folks. Oh, we have a few. Okay, let's see. Let's see here. Right. Sorry, I'm just going back to the chat now, looking for some questions because I've been alerted that there are some. At the bottom.
Okay.
Maybe it's a different document. Or, okay, let's see. Here we go. Here's some questions. Samit, sorry if I mispronounced your name, has a good question. We cannot turn off WSL with the power off command. Will this command come in the future?
Yeah. So it's something that also, again, SysMD is not going the answer to everything, but as part of this work, we want as well to ensure that you can turn off, like to enforce your machine, to shut down. And so, yeah, as part of the SysMD work, this is going to come so that we can say to the launcher, basically, please shut down, like this VM. For those who don't know, like when you exit the application, it doesn't close immediately. What the Microsoft team is doing is waiting for some seconds, basically, before turning down the VM to ensure that nothing else is running or that you don't start a new window. So supposedly the VM is going, to stop after a while. But we know that, like for some workflow, we want to shut down the VM immediately, especially after the first configuration. And so it's one of the options we are going to enable for 2204 LTS.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's continue. Yannick has a Twitch question. How do file permissions work? Does Windows see root owned files?
Didier,
you might want to demo it through the Explorer. I guess it's better, with images than just words.
Okay.
Why do you have to run the final dot there, Carlos?
Just to set
That's the
the
current
directory, and it's translated through interoperability to a Windows path.
Okay, cool.
So basically, it's replacing the dot for explorer.exe to //WSL $, the name of this.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at the permission of one file, just open like LSB release or OS version as you want.
First tab is more complicated.
First tab, yeah. So we can open it and watch for the permission so that.
So from Windows side, you can do everything on your Linux instance, unless you set something else different. But interoperability, it gives Windows superpowers on your Linux instance.
Okay,
Which is
but like if
expected
you were
because Windows is the host.
right. So like if you wanted to do like set fackle to change the permissions of something, like if it's privileged enough, you wouldn't be able to.
But yeah, all files are owned by the user. So WSL is per user. So when you install the distribution, it's for this user. So the distribution are not shared, between different users on Windows.
Okay.
So basically, the files are still, private for our users. And so you don't have, the files shared between different Windows users. And then you don't really have this kind of issues. It's like an application writing, some files for you. So.
Is there any plans to expand that, or like I guess to make that configurable if you wanted the WSL install to be across all users on the system or specific users? Or is that just never in the plan? It's always
It's something that we can bring to Microsoft, but in my opinion, this is baked into the system. It's something that at least on our side we have control on.
Yeah.
But it's something that we can bring up with them in case there is a real interest and real use cases for this.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Very good. Let's see. We've got another question. Podcast Ubuntu Portugal. I guess I don't quite understand that. There's a question about like what protocol was that, but I don't know what that was related to.
I think it was the protocol for file sharing, and it's 10.9.
Yeah, it's 9p.
Okay.
9p, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have all the properties of 9p regarding the previous question about permission. You inherit all the permission from the default user to install the WSL instance. So.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, continuing. Danny asks, have you used any of my systemd works? This is still Danny, in enabling Ubuntu to use systemd out of the box. And I know you all had said that we'll talk more about kind of future stuff. If you'd like to do that now.
Yeah, we can do. So first, I would like to thank Danny because he did an incredible work on systemd integration. So we didn't use the work you did directly, but it's very similar. We use boot parameters to start systemd, and then we did some work in the launcher to start the session in the systemd namespace. So the mechanism are the same. The implementation is different because we try to limit the gap where someone can enter into the namespace instead of the user that is supposed to enter the namespace. So, Didier, do you want to add something?
No, yeah. Basically, the idea is one of the issue is most of the solutions that exist for now is that if you control C at the right time, basically you can escape the systemd namespace, and this is a security issue, obviously. And so this is why we are baking that into the launcher, which brings its own set of challenges itself. So this is why it's taking a little bit more time. But as Jean-Baptiste told, thanks for your solution. At least I think a lot of people are already using systemd on WSL today thanks to your work. But at the same time, we need to have something which is generic enough and strong enough so that people can't break out of it. So this is why we had to inspire from your work, but basically do something a little bit different due to this.
I'm muted. Hello. We have another question from Daniel Dewberry. To what degree can WSL reach into Windows to manipulate the registry data? Thoughts?
Theoretically, it's possible because we have some very nice tool on Linux like Exer to modify, the registry files. And so if you go to the right, place, I think you can do it.
Yeah, it's running as the same user than the user in Windows that started the WSL instance. So you have the same privileges than this user. So anything this user can do in Windows, you can do from within WSL.
That's great.
Yeah, so just to clarify, being root on WSL doesn't give you more privilege than your user on Windows.
That makes sense. Another question. I guess Diogo has a couple of questions. One of them was besides WSLG, what are the current differences between WSL2 on Windows 10 and 11? I think that's a great question because how far do we? It sounds like we only go back to Windows 10. So what are some of those differences there?
If you talk specific for WSL, if you talk specifically about WSL2, you won't notice much difference. that the difference is more noticeable in between WSL 1 and 2. But talking about specifically WSL 2, you need, of course, there are some different steps in enabling it, especially on older versions of Windows 10. But once enabled, the features are almost the same, except for WSLG, which requires the latest. You would add anything, Didier?
Oh yeah, that was basically this.
It's great when the developers are like fighting to answer the question because that's great.
We won't fight.
Well, no, not fighting, but like. Diogo has another question. Is there an aliases functionality like the one for multipass?
No, that's a short answer.
Like some people publish some tricks about it, but basically nothing officially supported.
We have a question about Snapcraft. So Young Ben asked, I just wonder whether Snapcraft team has planned to add support for WSL or WSL's team to add System D support on WSL. I know you guys kind of talked about that a little bit before. I heard there's some unofficially way to put System D on WSL. Would be nice if it's possible to use it officially. That would enable Snap. So here's a community member that wants to use Snap on Windows. I kind of asked about that. So is there anything you all would like to add about that?
So that's two different questions, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, because do we have support to support WSL in Snapcraft? I think that's the first part of the question.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Nothing that I heard so far, but that's something we can bring to the team, and we'd be probably very interested in adding that to the support to Snapcraft.
Yeah.
The second thing is would be nice to run Snapcraft and Snaps inside WSL, right? That's the second part of the question, if I understand it well. Which depends on systemd, and so this is one part, and the second part is AppArmor, which is not enabled in the kernel. So we need these two bits to have a fully confined experience with Snaps. Once you have that, you can already run Snapcraft inside WSL if that's what you want to do. That works, but you cannot run the Snap inside WSL because you cannot run snapd. Once we have systemd, we can run unconfined snaps, so without all the security around snaps. And once we have AppArmor, we can run fully confined snap and have all the security that Snap brings to the application. So you have to wait a little bit. It's coming, but
you can run Snapcraft, right? You can build your snaps inside.
Yeah, exactly. You can. Yeah, if you plan to, for example, you're working on Windows and you want to build Snap, you can build your Snap inside WSL and publish your Snap to the Snap Store. It's perfectly doable. You can just not run your Snap inside WSL.
Not yet. Perhaps one day. Gosh, this has been great. We've had like some amazing questions, and I can't believe that we're almost out of time. Is there anything that you all wanted to kind of showcase that's like coming up or talk about, like features? I know we talked about like, systemd kind of work in progress stuff there.
So yeah, what's coming for next release? The first thing, as you saw, it can be a bit difficult to set up when you're not familiar with Ubuntu. It's all command line and so on. So what we'll have in 2204 is the out-of-box experience. So it will be a graphical wizard written in Flutter. So it's a Flutter GUI that helps you set up your instance on first boot. So you will have this wizard that helps you configure your user and the different options that you need in WSL. So that's the first thing. And if you cannot run GUI application, for example, WSLG is not available, or you're running Windows in non-graphical mode, then you will fall back to a text mode. The other thing that will ship in 2204, So when you start for the first time, it can take some time. You see, you have this black screen, please wait a few minutes. So we'll have at a boot splash screen. So, well, it's like a teaser of what's coming, and then have some slideshow to present what you can do with WSL while you're waiting. The third thing is SIM integration. So currently, when you look at the terminal, well, it's a Windows terminal with a Windows SIM. It's difficult to tell which tab is a Windows tab or a PowerShell tab, and which one is an Ubuntu tab. So what we will ship in 2204 is theming for the terminals. So the theme will be really close to what you have with a GNOME terminal in Ubuntu. So with the colors and the font and everything. So you will really be like in a Ubuntu, a GNOME terminal, but running in a Windows terminal. And what else? So, and we talk about systemd, so that's one of the big topics for the 2204 release. We'll have systemd support, which will enable running services, well, and do much more stuff that we are able to do at the moment. So, yeah, so that's what's coming. So
It's
wait
very
like
exciting.
4 months. So we will release, as Didier said, we will have an Ubuntu preview image coming in December, and we'll start shipping this feature in this image.
Very cool.
And so Carlos just showed, like this new out-of-the-box experience, which is pick up your user from Windows, also your, current languages. And this is using the Ubuntu Desktop installer. So I know there was a previous Indaba about it. And this is exactly the same code, which is just running in the WSL mode, let's say. And so we have a unified experience across, let's say all Ubuntu flavors.
Hey, it works. Okay, so I wanted to show people where they can come and find some pretty cool WSL things and how to contribute to Ubuntu. And so I guess these links aren't clickable, but they're easy enough to find, right? Another thing that I think the enterprise team will be happy to tell you is that we're hiring. I mean, perhaps you know that we're hiring, but here, let's see. There we go. I know that's kind of a long string, but screenshot it, save it. This video's forever, so we're hiring. Please come if you're interested in WSL, and working with these amazing folks and others. Submit a resume and let us know. Hopefully, we can find some more amazing talent to add to this awesome team. Now, very important question, as these people are out in enterprise, and if they find a bug, do they report it to GitHub? Is that where you all want to see the issues? Where do they file bugs, JB?
So basically, there are different kind of questions, right? If it's a bug, in the startup program, on GitHub we have the link you showed, github/ubuntu/WSL. Then if it's a bug in one of the Ubuntu software, as we told, it's exactly the same, binary. So it means that the bug also impacts, Ubuntu on desktop, on servers, on any kind of cloud. And so our, bug tracker for this is Launchpad. And you have links through the contribute Ubuntu link on how to file a bug, where to file it, how to find, the place exactly to file against. So don't open a bug on JDit, please, on the GitHub project.
Okay.
Do it, as if it was as it is a JDit bug actually on Ubuntu. And then if we see that it's WSL specific, of course we will triage it and special case it. But otherwise, it's again, it's a normal Ubuntu distribution. It just happens that it runs on Windows.
What if someone is not sure? Should they try and find you guys to engage you to say, let's triage a little bit and then see where the bug goes? Like, or would you, and where would you like people to engage you on this topic?
For bugs on the contribute to Ubuntu page, there is a guide on how to file a bug and where, like which channel, to reach people, and ensuring that there is a triaging team and so on. But for people who want to engage directly with us, Jean-Baptiste?
Yeah, so the best channel is on Libera Chat for us. So it's on dash Ubuntu desktop, yeah. Okay. And you can find us there. So it's a public channel. You can reach out to us on Discourse also. So there is a desktop category where you can start thread and start discussion and interact with us. And well, that's the main channel where we can have discussion.
So we don't need a specific IRC channel or Discourse or anything, because it is all kind of desktop team, enterprise desktop team. So
yeah, exactly.
It's important that bugs go to the right place. If people are unsure, come and say, hey, I don't really know, or start a Discourse topic or something, and we can make sure to get it in the right place. It is important to not just have like a slew of bugs in the wrong place. I think everybody understands that. So, also, I know we're almost out of time, but I feel the need to tell everybody that's watching that this enterprise team is the same team that did ZFS, and I know that there was a lot of excitement around having ZFS as part of the installer, and these people are real rock stars that do a lot of really cool things, and they're real people too. So if someone is like, hey, I use WSL in my enterprise day to day, I work at, I don't know, some big corp, and here's just like a common problem that I'm having, or maybe I just don't have the knowledge. Like, these people are very friendly. You can reach out to them. They're responsive. They're real people, and they'll help. And maybe you have a use case that turns out a lot of other people do. So raising those, needs are really helpful. And you could maybe even see your feature, included one day if that happened. Just gotta love open source, right? And it's pretty cool to see that integration, bringing open source to people that are using Windows for their, development environments. I think this is very important work, and you all are amazing. So with that, I think we're going to close. Thank you all so much for joining. JB, Didier, Carlos, I really appreciate your time. And I think it's great, the work that you're doing and spreading this excitement into the community and being available to answer everybody's questions is pretty cool. So thanks again.
Thank you very much, Heather, for inviting us. And thank you to the Puppet Master. So thank you, Monica.
Right, Monica's behind the scenes doing lots of work. So really appreciate Monica. And thank you everybody for coming to watch and learn. And I hope you walk away from this excited to go try it out. So bye everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.